it really start to turn the promotion on fire or the territory on fire as y'all began this global expansion and you started with WrestleMania 1? When you signed on from AWA, how long did it take for the place to catch fire? Because when I watch back on those old videotapes or on the WWE Network, I mean, you guys were playing big arenas, stadiums way back in the day, and of course, going to the Silverdome at WrestleMania 3, 93,000. How long was it before it just turned into utter chaos? Because that was when you go back and you do the years to draw those kind of houses back in that day, they're just now doing it now. I mean, I played Astrodome. We drew 67,000. We were Ford Field. We had 90,000. Y'all were doing this stuff way back in the day. So how was that for you to go from humble beginnings, good money with Vern, but now all of a sudden you're the man and things start taking off? How long did it take to get there? Sorry for the long-winded question. I'm a shits at this.
No, it was instantly.
Okay.
I mean, it's almost like everything had built up, almost like something exploding like a volcano or something. But for whatever reason, the backstory with the Rocky, and I'd been there before. We'd sold out Shea Stadium, me and Andre and Zbyszko and Bruno. And, we'd had whenever I wrestled Andre, we had huge crowds because Andre was over like crazy. And all of a sudden, it's kind of like when I came back, it was almost like they were ready for something new. They'd had about 5 years of Backlund, doing his thing. And I think they were ready for a character. So as soon as we hit Madison Square Garden, my memory's not that great, but what I remember is that was a rocket ship ride from that day forward. And I hate to sound like this, but it was sold out everywhere we went and everything we did. Strombo used to put his hands behind his back and call me the Goldie Goose and just teasing me, And I was really, I wasn't trying to take advantage of the situation, but I wasn't real great at being on time because I used to like to work out and I used to like to party a little bit during the day, and so I would kind of like show up at the buildings instead of like at 6 o'clock or 6:30 when I should be there. I'd sometimes show up at 7 or I'd show up during the intermission, and I would tell everybody, if you don't hear from me, if I do not call you, everything's fine. I'll be here. If you get a phone call from me, then we got a problem. And I only missed one show the whole time I was there all those years, and that's when I got fogged in and I couldn't land in St. Louis. But I always made the towns, but it was a rocket ship from the moment the Iron Sheik thing went down. It just took off.
What was the difference when you go back to thinking about some of your matches with Andre the Giant, the match in Shea Stadium when he would have been a little bit more in his prime versus 3 when he wasn't feeling real good and you slammed him? What was the difference between working Andre kind of, prime and then kind of post-prime and just the magic or Jesus, what's the word I'm searching for? The mystique of working with Andre and the reality of it.
There were two things that were different between Shea Stadium and then later on when Andre, like WrestleMania 3, when Andre had some health problems. The main difference was we were friends at WrestleMania 3. Shea Stadium, he didn't like me. And I was like, I had a hard time with it because I was booked with him everywhere. And I was just I don't know what it was. I was such a fan and such a mark. In my mind, when I went to Andre, I thought that I could be as big as him or I could be the Giant. I know I couldn't be, but in my mind, I was just an idiot.
And that's the competitive side of all of us.
Yeah. I mean, I just thought I could go after this guy. I would fight him tooth and nail. And he'd go, calm down. He would yell at me in the ring because first off, I was green. I was probably dangerous. But with him, I was just trying to show that I was a worthy opponent. And he just beat on me like a dog for about 7 or 8 years. And I just remember driving up to Philadelphia Spectrum or the Capitol Center because we drove everywhere. When I'd see the building, I'd realize Andre was in there and I'd pull my car and I'd puke. That's how scared I was and nervous. And then once I got in there and we made contact, I was okay. But by WrestleMania 3, we'd spent so much time in Japan together and he saw me fight for my life over there because Japan back in the 70s was a lot different than it is nowadays. And he saw me fighting for my life over there when Inoki would call me up, go, oh, we're shooting tomorrow, and all this Gotcha's boy Fujinami said, oh, we're going to have to shoot, and all this stupid crap they were doing, that Andre kind of like watched me. He goes, okay, this guy's okay. He's cool. He loves the business. Then we became really good friends. We were inseparable. So by the time we got to WrestleMania 3, we sat in the locker room all day. He drank a couple bottles of Crown Royal. I was sitting there, and I kept dumping mine because I couldn't keep up with him, when he wasn't looking. And thank God he didn't catch me, or I'd have been dead. But we were good friends, and so when we went out to WrestleMania 3, I was really upset and worried about what we were doing in the finish, and Andre just kept telling me, don't worry. I asked him about the slam, don't worry. Am I going over, you going over? Don't worry. So I actually went out there not knowing what we were doing or what the finish was. Nothing.
I've heard you say this 100 times.
Yeah.
Shoot.
But what the weird thing was, is Vince put me in a really bad spot because the night before the match, he came to my room and he said, Andre is in a really bad spot with his back and stuff. What would you do, to get through the match with Andre? So I took a yellow legal pad out and I started writing the match down, and I've never done the Diamond Dallas Page thing before, but I started writing the match down. I said, walk to the center of the ring, start jibber jabbing at each other, have Andre throw the punch, block it, 1, 2, 3, go for the slam, fall backwards. I wrote it all down. Step on me once, step on me twice, slam me once, slam me the second time, headbutt off his thigh. I wrote all the stuff down the whole time, keeping Andre next to the ropes. Even when I fell backwards with a slam, I wanted him close enough to the ropes where he could pull himself up. Everything I wrote down, the match from A to Z with a question mark on the finish, and I had to slam the match with a question mark, the whole legal pad, I wrote everything down. I gave it to Vince. I said, if you let Andre know I did this, if you tell him I wrote this down, I don't know how you're going to present him this, but I will be a fucking dead man. And I'm serious, because he does not like anything like this. He likes to call it in the ring. He doesn't want to talk. And if you show him I did this, I'm dead. Vince must have went and talked to him because everything I wrote down was exactly the way the match went. It's exactly what I wrote down is what we did. And the question mark for the slam, Andre yelled in the middle of the ring, slam, about towards the end. And then he said, drop the leg. I dropped the leg. I didn't know if he was going to kick out or not. And he didn't kick out.
Man, to me, I rewatched that match last night, and of course I've said it a million times, and I saw it when it went down. But that was a genius match because for you to fire up after blocking his shot, a couple of punches, go for the slam, and of course when the way you fall down and you have to twist your leg out from under you from getting it crushed, and then to start selling that back, you're immediately. You don't need to be shined up.
Right.
I mean, in theory, you're the babyface, but you don't need to be shined up. You're fighting from underneath the entire match.
It was, brother,
It made so much sense.
it was there from the moment we walked in the ring, such as it would have been there if you would have ever wrestled me. That's what would have happened. It would have been, we could have looked at each other and the roof would have blown off the place. You were so over at the time, and they hated me so much from trying to put WWE out of business for 10 years. They would have been great. But anyway, I'll get off that.
No, we'll get.
That's in my craw, brother, that I never got to work with you.